They go by many names: video essayists, commentary channels, overly opinionated, pretentious yappers. No cutaway for that one. On YouTube, there exists a video genre dedicated to analysing everything from capitalism and Ratatouille to an 8-hour video essay on Victorious. If it's a topic, a concept, media, best believe somebody has analysed it. But then, who is left to analyse video essays and video essayists themselves? Moreover, who is there to analyse the audience of video essays? In other words, who is left to analyse you?
Layton Observes.
Hello and welcome back to the Layton Observes channel. It is I, the Layton in question, and today we are going to be exploring some of the problems associated with the genre of video essays. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the psychological function that video essays serve for the audience, as well as the compromises that creators of them will inevitably find themselves making. I want to preface this by saying that despite this video being about the problems associated with the video essay genre, I myself am not a video essay hater. In fact, I actually think that video essays are probably one of the coolest genres to come out of the platform of YouTube, and I like video essays so much that I make them. I enjoy the video essays that other people make, including my peers and my friends.
Hello, my friends! How are you guys feeling out there?
I think video essays are good, but they could be better. And in order to convey that to you, we're going to be getting a little bit meta. Did that rhyme? They could be better, but they could be a bit meta. Stay on task. Stay on. So the usual flow of a video essay is that you have the subject, or the text, if you want to put it in slightly more academic terms, that goes through the analyzer, the video essayist, and then that is consumed by the audience. So you have subject, analyzer, audience. That's the usual pipeline. So then the part where I come in is that I essentially am going to turn the audience of video essays into an interpretable, analyzable text, because we're going to talk about how audiences' expectations influence the content of video essays and even influence the personality that is conveyed by video essayists. And we're even going to talk about how video essays can impact the mental health of the people that make them. And then also the part that I'm particularly excited about is that I will get to share with you some interesting insights that I wrote within my award-winning dissertation that I wrote many moons ago. In summary, we're going to be talking about why people watch video essays, how video essayists meet the needs of their audience, as well as the problems associated with it. Of course, the reasons why people watch video essays can't all be problematic, and so, of course, we'll be starting with the mildest of takes and working our way up to the spiciest.
Come on! Go! Get some, baby!
Before that, though, we're going to knock out the sexiest part of any video essay, because it's around about that time to talk about the definition. So video essays belong to a larger content type umbrella, so to speak, that I would simply refer to as discussion, of which there are roughly 4 types on YouTube. You have drama channels that talk about the kind of flavour of the day, things to do with music, celebrities. You have fandom channels that discuss and reflect upon the particular goings-on of franchises, and those are generally made by fans for fans. And then, more relevant to this video, you have commentary channels and video essayists. Teasing between the difference between these two can be kind of difficult, as Olivia also said in her video talking about video essays. You could probably create a bingo card of things that exist on both: visible microphone, intricate set or background, overly verbose runtimes.
Half the videos that get recommended to me are 7-hour retrospectives on, like, the penguins of Madagascar.
Some use a green screen, others don't. Some use academic sources, others are stupid. Not being academic doesn't mean that you're stupid. I agree. Some use cutaways to illustrate a point. The point is, there is no singular thing that demarcates video essay from commentary channel. Again, no singular thing. It's mainly about the collage. It's mainly about the vibes, you know it when you see it. Because one thing that you could say is that video essays and video essayists, the people that make them, you could say that they all come from an academic background. Let's say, there are people like ContraPoints, FD Signifier, myself even, that all have master's degrees for example. But then this kind of disregards the people that don't necessarily come from an academic background that no doubt are also making good, high quality video essays. I don't have a database of people that do and don't have degrees because I'm not the fucking feds, bro. I'm merely saying that video essayists do not always come from academic backgrounds. Some of them do, but some things are more commentary-like, some things are more video essayist-like. Like me, this stuff probably exists on the spectrum. That joke was brought to you by Speculative Autism. Some channels just do commentary videos, some channels just do video essays, some are bisexual because they do both. Use your discernment. I and the algorithm that sent you here believe in your ability to discern the difference between a video essay and a commentary video. Slop versus art, that's probably a paradigm of some kind.
Slop versus art. And Twitter brain.
What do you not like about your content?
Answering that is for a later point in the video. Prerequisites out of the way before moving on to the more controversial reasons as to why people watch video essays, as well as the problems associated with them. We will now go on to talk about the least controversial, most obvious reason why people watch video essays, and that's because they are interesting. So you've probably heard the statistic that supposedly 90% of our daily thoughts are the same as ever, the same as yesterday, the same as they'll be tomorrow. And I think I know the reason for that, so let me know if this story sounds familiar to you. You wake up, turn off your alarm, relieve yourself, shower, commute for what feels like forever, work for what feels like forever, return home in the same metal box that feels like forever, eat, go to sleep, rinse and repeat day after day until you perish. A day with so little peaks of interest that graphing each moment looks like the heartbeat monitor of a dead person. And this is where YouTube comes in, particularly when you sit down to have din-dins, to have dinner. Because all of a sudden, that graph, if I had my slide whistle with me, I'd go, it gets a little, ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, here's a little. If you have headphones in, I'm so sorry you heard me slurp in your ear, unless you enjoyed it, in which case, you're a fucking freak. What went wrong? We were told that variety was the spice of life, and yet somehow we have ended up at a point where our average day is as spicy as a jar of mayonnaise. Side note, when the fuck did we start making so many different varieties of mayonnaise? Like, baconaise, bitch. Bacon, what are we talking about, bro? How did it become this way, I hear you ask? Well, one, late-stage capitalism, dystopian hellscape, and yada yada later.
Is yada yada bad?
Oh, yada yada's good.
In the modern day, almost every semblance of novelty, entertainment, the sublime has been localized, quarantined into a square rectangle that you keep in your pocket, that you have hinged to a keyboard, that you have on your wall. Even though I started making a point of video essays being interesting, I think what I may more so be describing is that they allow for a route of escapism. And as dramatic as I was in conveying that to you, my point is video essays can scratch the itch, allow us to experience something interesting that we genuinely care about, that generally is kind of missing from daily life. We are novelty-seeking creatures. We need dopamine to make the brain go brr. And video essays are one way of doing that, because they can make you feel like a kid again. They can make you feel more educated. And after listening to a neurodivergent, millennial, or quirked-up Zoomer for 2 hours, they can make you feel a sense of connection. Here's an excerpt from a study that you might find interesting. Human social networks are overwhelmingly homophilous. Individuals tend to befriend others who are similar to them in terms of a range of physical attributes, for example, age and gender. Here we show evidence for neurohomophily. Neural responses when viewing audio-visual movies are exceptionally similar among friends, and that similarity decreases with increasing distance in a real-world social network. These results suggest that we are exceptionally similar to our friends in how we perceive and respond to the world around us, which has implications for interpersonal influence and attraction. What does this mean? It means that the reason as to why we are friends with people, that we feel attracted to people, is because They literally process the world similarly to us. And although that study was talking about friends, I suspect that this relationship, the similarity, exists between audience and video essayists, or more broadly, creators in general, because, you know, algorithms are sorting machines. They are trying to find out what for you on an individual basis is the most psychologically gratifying. And so, of course, it makes sense that that kind of content that scratches your particular brain itch is probably made by someone that is more similar to you rather than less similar to you. And so the reason why video essays can be so compelling is because they can mirror your point of view, or if it's on a topic that you yourself have not even considered yet, you're likely to be predisposed to agreeing with the particular video essayist that you've become accustomed to. One, because as I've said, your brains are probably quite literally more similar than disparate. And then even more simply, if you've agreed with their, say, previous 9 takes, it's quite likely that you're going to agree with their following 1, 2, and 3.
And this will be important to remember for later.
In some ways, video essayists are fulfilling the role of the friend that you go along with when you go to the cinema or theatre. You know, when you come out those double doors and the friend turns to you and asks, "So what did you think?" The only difference with a video essayist is you listen to them talk for 2 hours and you sit there and shut the fuck up.
Which brings me to the term parasocial relationship.
The term parasocial relationship refers to a relationship that a person imagines having with another person whom they do not actually know, such as a celebrity or a fictional character. This often involves a person feeling as though they have a close, intimate connection with someone whom they have never met due to closely following that person or character in media, such as TV, shows, videos, podcasts, etc. And then I would argue online video essayists, you get the vibes.
Oh, I know this person. Do you? Do you know this person?
Almost everybody has made their video on the loneliness epidemic, and I'm sure my video isn't far behind. However, my point is generally that in a world where when you get in from work and you shuffle past your Amazon boxes and you eat your meal for one in your house share bedroom, I'm basically just describing myself in a previous life. It makes sense that you would seek out connection from people online. Watching a video essayist or a commentary YouTuber may well be the closest that you feel a semblance of connection in like a 24-hour period. And I don't think that that observation is relevant only to video essayists and discussion videos in general. I think it applies to a lot of content that we consume online. It's kind of just, you know, a sign of the times. There's a high probability that you see these people more than you see your own family members, and there's an even higher probability that they're more entertaining than them too, because each time you visit them, it's like getting a kamehameha to their face of interesting thoughts, facts, opinions. It's no surprise that it would get you thinking, what would an actual connection with this person feel like? Like that one painting where Adam's reaching out for God or whatever. You want more from them. You start going about your day thinking, I wonder what such and such would think of this. You start anticipating the video that they'll do on it, you know. You start anticipating them in the same way that you anticipate seeing a friend, meeting up with them for coffee so you can get all their tea. You want to feel like part of the gang, so you listen to them on podcasts. You watch them on their second, less refined second channel. You want them to tuck you into bed and give you a night-night kiss. Wait. Why is that written down? Video essays to fall asleep to. So I know that not all video essays are meant to be slept on. I know that somewhere there is an autist with a no stone unturned quality about them where they feel like they need to research everything and labor over every single word, and that's why the lengths of videos can be so diabolically long. Conversely, on the other side of the screen, I know that there is an enthusiastic viewer that is completely locked in. It was only a few weeks ago where I myself watched a 3.5 video on Tears of the Kingdom because her life is hard and I needed to brain rot. Was it a good way to spend my time in a we're all just creatures flying on a rock in space, man kind of way? Yes. Though, other than learning the term ludonarrative dissonance, can I say that I remember any of it? No. Ludonarrative dissonance, for those of you that were wondering, by the way, is when the game's purported story and gameplay do not mesh well together. For instance, it's kind of like when you're told that you're the protagonist that needs to save the world, but then you can very easily spend 2 hours creating a golem that has a flamethrower for a penis. I acknowledge that some video essays are insanely long because they need to be that length so that they can accomplish what they set out to do. However, that's not always the case within the video essay genre, because one of the things that I think video essays can very often suffer from is bloat. And I think I found the reason why. So then I look at her and I say, sorry, hang on. Did you see that new SpongeBob episode?
Why don't you take a seat?
Oh god.
It all begins in the year 1848 with a little-known someone called Karl Marx.
Enshittification. This is a term that describes things getting worse intentionally. One way that it finds itself in the video essay genre is in the same way that it finds itself in content that you can find on streaming platforms. They make shows as long and drawn out as possible, and they also intentionally design them for a distracted audience.
She had said she'd heard from so many showrunners who are given notes by the streaming channels that they say, this isn't second screen enough. And what they mean is the viewer is expected to be on their phone kind of half doing something else while your crime drama or whatever is playing. And you just can't make it as complicated as you have because they're not going to understand it because they're only going to be half concentrating on your show.
You have repetition, bloat, you have context, bloat. Earlier on when I made the joke about SpongeBob in 1848, it's like, do we, bitch? Do we really need to go back every single time? Do we really need to know every nook and cranny of the history? You just want to increase the runtime. I'm on to you, bitch. You just want to increase the runtime. I'm on to you, bitch. Do we really need to start from 1848, or do you just want to edge me and milk me for 80% of the retention time until we actually get to the point where we get to the part of the video that I actually came for? Because I'm not going to leave halfway through. Sunk cost fallacy, baby boy. I'm staying. I'm busting. I'm waiting until I get that nut, that intellectual nut, you know what I mean? If I leave now, how else am I going to justify to myself the useless bullshit that I have just taken in for the past hour? Videos will be called The Devastating Downfall of The Office, and then it's just a 5-hour recap of the entire show and its ratings with no personal input. That was the most liked comment on a Drew Gooden video talking about shit on the internet wasting our time.
But I'm worried that some people are taking the wrong lessons from the success of some of these channels. They see that a very long video about a niche subject has the potential to get a lot of views, so it's almost as if they go into their video with the goal of making it as long as possible, even if there's not really that much to talk about. The current YouTube meta is to turn your video into a podcast. It's to pad the absolute shit out of the runtime because that's what the algorithm likes.
This proclivity for video essayists to waste your time to pacify you, this is known, which I'm sympathetic to. The world is a hellscape. Sometimes you do just need to turn your brain off. But a 5-hour video on iCarly, bitch. I'm sure that this kind of thing is made with passion and consumed with passion too, so I can't overly hate. However, there is just this part of me that wants to go Joker mode because it's like, they're harvesting your time for financial gain. That wasn't a good Joker impression. They're harvesting your power. No. And you know what? Even if the creators of these things aren't actually that passionate about it, I can't really hate because the audience wants to be pacified. They want to be put to sleep, quite literally. Which, in case you clicked on this video and that's what you thought you were getting yourself into, first of all, big mistake. However, let me allow you to get a little bit more situated. Here's a blanket to keep you warm. Here's a bottle of milk to also keep you warm from the inside, I guess. And then for the rest of the video, I'm going to be performing it exclusively in ASMR to lull you quietly to sleep, is what I would say if I wasn't fucking lying. So far, we have spoken about the audience's needs relative to things like wanting to consume something interesting, wanting a feeling of connection. what we've just spoken about, being pacified. In other words, these are the ways in which the creators, video essayists, are influencing their audience. Soon we'll go on to talk about how viewers affect creators, including things like their mental health and how they influence the kind of content that they make. However, before that, we have one final reason as to why people watch video essays, and it's probably the most controversial of the bunch, and that reason is because audiences want to be programmed.
So on the surface, this may seem contradictory, contrarian, deliberately inflammatory, especially considering the zeitgeist, the backdrop that is content dedicated towards deprogramming people. You know, we're all in the matrix, man. We live in a society, conditioning, etc. Despite this kind of anti-matrix, anti-societal programming media, though, I think that most people, whether they give their informed consent or whether it's a manufactured consent or not, I think most people actually volunteer themselves to be programmed. And there's a myriad of reasons as to why people do this. I think partially it's helpful to informing our sense of identity. I also think by extension it alleviates anxieties that we may have, because you know you have a belief about a certain level of certainty that you have. But mainly I think the reason why we're so ready and willing to give ourselves as participants to be programmed is because thinking for yourself is hard. From a study called The Unpleasantness of Thinking, a meta-analytic review of the association between mental effort and negative affect, overall mental effort felt aversive in different types of tasks. For example, tasks with and without feedback in different types of populations, university-educated populations and non-university-educated populations, and on different continents. Supporting theories that conceptualize effort as a cost, we suggest that mental effort is inherently aversive. People will deliberately go out of their way to avoid putting in effort, thinking, mental effort, cross-culturally. Are my arms in shot? No, they're going to be cut off, and that's going to look
silly.
Mental effort, thinking, is inherently uncomfortable, which video essayists have to be aware of in constructing the kinds of videos that they make and the ways that they do them. They have to be aware of the psychology of their audience, if you will. And they are, whether unconsciously or sometimes even consciously.
Let's discuss this. And by discuss, I mean you sit quietly and I'll tell you what to think.
Give me your brain, little one.
Give me your brain, little one.
I feel like that kind of sounded like Black Doom from Sonic the Hedgehog.
I bet no one expected this baby could fly.
It's magnificent. The perfect killing machine.
This might sound hyperbolic until you take into account that there is a very sizable subsection of the population that doesn't even know whether they like a film or music until a reviewer has told them their thoughts about it. Like the amount of times I have read the meme that is essentially tantamount to the idea that, oh, I didn't know whether to... I didn't know whether to like an album until Anthony Fantano told me. Like, dude, how do you not know?
Where is your sense of intuition, young Padawan?
I don't even like Star Wars, if that's a Star Wars reference. Fuck it. This is a complete aside from the topic of the video, but I just want it to be known publicly out there that I do not respect art criticism as a profession in the slightest. And you can put that on my fucking gravestone. Gravestone? Is that what it's called? Tombstone? Whatever. But what, if any, are the differences between the left and the right, the libs and the rightoids, in the commentary / video essayist space, I hear you ask? The main difference, and this is going to be somewhat of a crude dichotomy, is that the right, conservatives, generally uphold hegemony, whereas the left, liberals, whatever umbrella term you want to use, largely subvert hegemony. Popularized by Antonio Gramsci, for those of you that don't know, hegemony is essentially the rules, so to speak, and ideas that are upheld and enforced by the ruling class or the dominant class. This is why conservative commentary essentially aims to criticize deviations from the norm and then bolster a return to normality as the ideal. And then, by contrast, this is why leftist commentary or video essays tend to have a goal of criticizing the norm in a way that they then seek to expand the norm or change it. You know, they're the revolutionaries.
Fundamentally.
So they're the differences in content. What about the differences in
medium?
Unless you count whatever the fuck PragerU is as a video essay.
Why then does the woke left insist on adding a girl dragon to my favorite cartoon when research shows that girls are boring and gay?
Generally speaking, leftists create what I would refer to as both commentary videos as well as video essays, whereas right-oids, conservatives, generally just make commentary videos. And I suspect part of the reason why this is for similar reasons as to why within academia itself it is overwhelmingly left-leaning or liberal-leaning. You will barely find any conservatives within academia. However, if there is one thing that unites both left-leaners, right-leaners, the libs, the conservatives, it is in that they both have a disposition towards the negative. In summation, in summary, in a whole 2 words, thing bad. Which brings me to the first content type of video essays.
Depreciator.
Hey, have you ever consumed a piece of content and wanted to share your opinion and also absorb other people's opinions on how that thing that you just consumed or watched or whatever is bad? Well, good luck, because there is a whole entire fucking industry for it. And some of the tells are thing bad, bad actually, not good, bonus points
for disgust face.
Whenever I create a thumbnail for a YouTube video, I just pull like a random still of me. But I can only surmise that when video essayists or commentary channels, like, they like practice in their mirror their most like disgusted face that they can do, like,
Layton, not all video essays are about depreciating stuff.
Baby boy, did you not think I anticipated that very frame of thought? The boy may have the tism, but, you know, theory of mind goes dummy. I'm aware of this. Not all video essays are dedicated towards depreciating another form of content or art form or what have you. However, generally speaking, when it's not the case, it's because it's presented as contrarian, you know? It's contrarily appreciative. It's about something being good, actually, or about something being underrated. And this is why, even though, like, Sonic the Hedgehog games have been out for over 20 years, motherfuckers are still making video essays about, like, Sonic Adventure is actually good. It's like, dude, it's been 2 decades.
Give up the fucking ghost.
Contrarian appreciators aside, the rest of the industry... It's weird that I can call it an industry, in fact, but it is fundamentally. Contrarian appreciators aside, the rest of the industry is what I would refer to as being depreciators. This is the first circle in the Venn diagram of content type, okay? And, you know, to be depreciative of things generally is relatively profane, especially when it's in the ballpark of like, wow, this TV show is not as good as it thinks that it is. But...
baby boy, that is but the tip of the iceberg.
Because beyond depreciator content, within that umbrella, categorization, taxonomy, whatever, as well as there being content bad, we also have person bad, which brings me to
moralizer content.
Moralizer content is essentially content that is dedicated to turning a person into a case study, so to speak, with the focus usually being on how they've been a little bit of a naughty boy or gal, if you will. And despite the way that I've introduced it, I do think that there is a place in society for this content type, if I'm gonna keep it a bean, you know, to separate the good from the bad. We have always had ways of this good, this bad, and this is just another way of
doing that.
Examples being the people that came out and made, I don't know, video essays about Drake and how he's a little bit strange with the teenagers, or has been historically, and I was a part of that crowd, if you want to watch that video. Anybody that made a video on Colleen, everybody and their fucking dog that made a video on Colleen. There are other examples though where people are just morally trying to overcorrect in some way. They're reaching, and their only evidence will be something like, this person is friends with this person, and this person I don't actually like, therefore this person over here is also bad. It's like, bro, focus on your own life. Sometimes with this style of video, you know, moralizer content, I can't help but feel that the main focus isn't actually on upholding or boosting or empowering, elevating the collective morality of society. Moreover, I think it actually comes from a place of schadenfreude, you know, this kind of let us hold up this person as an example of what you shouldn't do and how you'll be treated in the event that you do the bad thing that we're talking about within this video. There's a schadenfreude, there is a perverse joy, a surplus enjoyment for gaining permission to look down upon or think that you are better than a particular person, the particular person in question. Much like in the same way that in the contemporary day, our primal thirst for bloodshed and warfare is satiated by calling little Timmy a on Call of Duty. In the same way, the proclivity, the human proclivity to want to, so to speak, burn a witch that we've done historically, I think that's satiated by not physically burning a witch, whether they deserve it or not, but symbolically there's a burning of a witch that happens with moralizer content. Just look at this person, look how bad they are, let us shame them. And again, I don't want to say that there isn't a place for this content type, but also when everybody's fucking doing it, bro, it's like, I don't know. Are we really are we really saving the world with our multi-hour epics documenting how bad somebody is? We really need 3 hours, bro? 2 hours? Who's got 2 hours? Insert parallel to witch trials and cancel culture and CCP humiliation rituals here. Social comparison theory dictates that if repeatedly you watch content in the style of person bad, person bad, person bad, sooner or later your subconscious is going to come to the conclusion that, oh, I guess I must be good by comparison then. Your brain is a computer. If you continually show it examples of people that are bad, then sooner or later it's going to come to the conclusion that, I guess, well, I'm not doing all these bad things, then I must be good. Are you? It's like, ooh, me reading Minecraft on the train but shaking my head so everybody knows I disagree. It's like, wow, I can't believe he would do that. I would never do what Hitler did. What I'm about to say may sound a little bit woo-woo, so, you know, take it even more so with a grain of salt than everything else that I've said in the video thus far. These are just my thoughts. This is not an authoritative, you need to believe what I believe, otherwise you're a fucking moron. Which I feel like, in the undertone, low-key is what a lot of these video essays... Whatever, let me press on. At any given time, there are feelings, energies within us circulating that want to be expressed, that want to find an outlet for themselves. Which is why if you're angry, you'll punch a punching bag, or if your name's Kyle, you'll punch a hole in the wall. If you're sad, maybe you'll listen to Adele. And so in trying to deduce what the psychological appeal is of moralizer content within, you know, depreciator content, within video essays as a whole, there's a part of me that wants to get down to the bottom of, like, what really is the psychological appeal of this content type? And so in that line of thought, what feeling does watching this content type promote the facilitation of, the transmutation of? What feeling does it allow the transmutation of? And I think the emotion or feeling may be something like guilt or shame. Like if the person watching it has the proclivity to have guilt or shame within them, that having an outside source to project it onto, almost like a lightning rod, allows it from attacking the person and instead making it be expelled to someone or something else. If you have this fundamental proclivity of thinking that, oh, maybe in some way I'm a bad person or a fundamentally flawed person, that maybe watching somebody worse and being able to transmute and transfer those internal feelings of guilt or shame stops it from attacking you because it goes to someone else. How bad can I really be if this person is far worse, you know? And then the final version of depreciator content within moralizer content is problematizer content, which I have observed get increasingly popular over the past few years on this platform, over the past 10 years on YouTube. And problematizer content, I would say, is a very specific kind of moralizer, depreciator content wherein the focus is to criticize art or culture or a person specifically through an academic, or more specifically a critical theory lens, such as feminist theory, critical race theory, or queer theory. Pick your term. And these schools of thought are supposed to have the superordinate goal of emancipating people from oppression. However, what that tends to look like online is merely calling things or people sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, all the isms. And so, why is this content type so psychologically appealing? One source, no HP, oh my god. One source that we can look to find the answer as to why this is the 33... The 33, I was going to do that Andrew Tate voice, the 33 strategies of war. Now more than ever, people have a hunger to believe in something. They feel an emptiness, which left alone they might try to fill with drugs or spiritual fads, but you can take advantage of it by channeling it into a cause you can convince them is worth fighting for. The cause can be anything you wish, but you should represent it as progressive. If it fits the times, it is on the side of the future, so it is destined to succeed. It is best to have some kind of enemy to hate. An enemy can help a group to define itself in opposition. So generally, the so-called enemy of problematizer content tends to be a non-tangible force. So you have things like the patriarchy, heteronormativity, systemic racism, things that aren't tangible enemies, so to speak. They're forces like gravity, should represent progress. Progress, you have this in the way of like people saying like, I'm on the right side of history. You know, there is an inherent virtue in believing certain beliefs, and that goes for whether you're on the left or the right. It just so happens that, you know, because we're talking about video essays, and as we've established, they're primarily a leftist medium. I'm not saying that this is merely a leftist thing. I'm sure conservatives have their own... In fact, I could go into a whole other thing as to how and why conservatives problematize content. They just have a different way of going about it. They don't necessarily use critical theory, but they do use something else. And whilst I don't think that emptiness is the only social backdrop that galvanizes people to adopting the beliefs and seeking out this type of content, problematizer content, because, you know, I do think that the consumption and production of this can also come from a sincere place, not just a critical place, if you will. But, you know, in a world that is no longer governed by having to spear a mammoth to have breakfast, you know, you can just beep boop Uber Eats, it's only natural that our priorities would change, our goals would change in terms of what we feel we need to do and fix about society. My issue with this content type, you know, problematizer content, and this is me admitting a personal bias, despite the pretense of intellectualism and the lengths of time that people can invest into the production and consumption of this style of content, I actually think that making it is pretty fucking lazy, and I think it makes the audience pretty fucking lazy too. And I'll explain that right now. The first thing that you may think after hearing me be somewhat disparaging about this content type is that you just don't get it, man. And to that I say, actually, I get it all too well. No Taylor Swift. Oh my god, I can't believe I just fucking... So unbeknownst to me, a lot of my university career was me learning and employing these critical theories. And they're essentially, I suppose, razors for you to scrape a text, like lenses to see a text through. And again, a text doesn't necessarily have to be a book. It can be a film, it can be a TV show, it can be anything that is the subject of your essay. This is why I was writing essays on the film Psycho through like a feminist lens and writing about like the male gaze and things of that nature. And I'll fucking tell you what, I was pretty damn good at it too. Because honestly, for me at least, you learn these lenses, these razors, and they're so rinse and repeatable. I wouldn't go as far as to say I could do it in my sleep, but I could certainly do it sleep deprived, and on many occasions I did. And I still got good grades. Once you know the process, you can repeat it easily, and for me, it feels tantamount to knowing how a magician does his or her, or their... Fuck! I was trying to be progressive by not saying his trick, and then I said his or her trick, and then the other crowd would be like, what about the non-binary magicians? A non-binary magicians... If you know any non-binary... What I'm saying is, if you know the process for creating an essay of this type, you can create it Again, easily, because you just use the same lens on a different media type and you can just rinse and repeat it over and over again. And so after that, the novelty is dead, which feels tantamount to knowing how a magician does their trick, you know? And you may say, well, even if the novelty is gone, they're still trying to shine a light on a kind of injustice that's happening in society. And to that I say, if you are considering video essays to be a form of activism, then they are a shoddy excuse for it. Video essays are and should be treated as primarily entertainment, which is why, if I can guess 90% of the points made from the title and thumbnail alone, then that video essay sucks. Another issue that I think problematizer content suffers from is the issue of monothinking, which is the explanation of phenomena that uses the exact same underlying reasons. And this is an issue of critical theories in general because they only really give you so many tools to analyze the world from. So invariably you start coming to the exact same conclusions about everything, which is why now video essays are damn near imitatable to the point of parody.
Capitalism.
And then, baby boy, my final issue with problematizer content is that fundamentally I think that it has an attitude problem. And remember, problematizer content is within the subsection of depreciator content, and depreciator content, the fundamental backbone of it is that it has to be taking umbrage with something. It has to be upset with something. Which is why, as I alluded to earlier, in my opinion, oftentimes the intellectualism, the intellectualization of problematizer content, a lot of these video essays, I think it's often a convenient excuse, the necessary cosplay to dress something up, to call thing bad whilst gaining virtue in the process. Which I realise might sound cynical. I also realise that sometimes video essayists will just say the quiet part out loud.
But you know me, my haters know it very well. I can't enjoy anything. I have to find something wrong about every single thing. I mean, have you heard about this condition? I was told it's called critical thinking.
There is a difference between critical thinking and critical theory, and as we went over last time, one of them is genuinely actually hard and difficult and in many cases uncomfortable, and the other is tantamount to a magician's trick. Motherfuckers like to complain, other motherfuckers like to listen to those previous motherfuckers complain, so then in the end state what you're left with is this almost incestuous melding of creator and audience comprised of people that have been referred to as having a resentful attitude. Because they have a continual feeling of being wronged, they tend to project this on the world, seeing oppressors everywhere. In this way, they often become the leader of those who feel disaffected and oppressed. If such people get power, they can become quite vicious and vengeful, finally able to vent their resentments on various victims. In general, they carry themselves with an air of arrogance. They are above others, even if no one recognizes this. They carry their head a little too high. They frequently have a slight smirk or look of disdain. As they get older, they are prone to pick petty battles, unable to completely contain their resentments that have accumulated over time. Their bitter attitude pushes a lot of people away, and so they often end up congregating with others who have this attitude as their form of community. So I don't think that all video essayists or audiences of video essayists fall into this category. I think many of them make real critiques of society, of culture, that aren't just dressed up grievances under the guise of calling something out as problematic to accrue virtue in the process. You know, I have made video essays in this vein that I wouldn't necessarily say are, you know, of the problematic variety or of the calling something out as problematic, so to speak. You know, video essays about, say, toxic or moreover shadow masculinity, you know, the misogyny that exists within the manosphere, or the racism that black people have faced for merely being themselves, for instance. I'm aware that this proclivity of seeking out the negative isn't just a video essay thing. It's an internet thing, it's a human thing. We are wired to sleuth through, to sleuth for the negatives, and video essays are no different. They make them more appealing to a broader audience.
Extra points if it's a little negative. Things like X is bad and here's why work for a reason. I'm pretty sure there's research that says that people are more likely to engage with negativity online than with positivity. So you have to kind of play into that a little bit to make sure things are optimized.
I think that there is a genuine time and place for this kind of analysis, for this kind of criticism. However, it is not everywhere and all the time, because if you look out to the world through your fucking eyes and all you see is things to be annoyed about or, critical about, then baby boy, that is a skill issue. Misanthropy and cynicism does not make you deep or an intellectual, it makes you a hater.
I love the way it feels to be a hater. Something so sweet about thinking that I'm better.
Hating is so common in our lives, and a lot of times it's followed up with, no, I'm just critiquing. It's like, you're not critiquing, you're hating. There's only one prize of being a hater, the perceived knowledge that you're better than someone else. It's not reality, but, you know, if it makes you feel better, have fun.
So, we've gone over why people watch video essays as well as the reasons associated with them. And so now we're going to do a little bit of a 180 because we're going to be talking about how audiences affect creators as well as the problems associated with that. However, before pressing on, before continuing, I just want to give a shout out to the motherfucking patrons holding it down for your boy, particularly for the past few months. It's been a bit of a rocky ride. I'm gonna keep it a buck. I'll probably insert some kind of update in some manner, so if you are interested in that, you can watch it at the end of this video. So if you're a patron or become a patron, you can watch that immediately after this. And then also, obviously, if you want to get your name immortalized in future videos like these beautiful people, then, you know, sign up to the Patreon, because, you know,
it's a small channel at the moment, but we're going to take it to 1 million, you know.
Also, while we're at it, some other housekeeping. If you've got this far in the video, I'm going to presume, maybe naively, that you've enjoyed the video. So, you know, if you want to hit the like, if you want to subscribe to see future stuff, and also, you know, take destiny
into your own fucking hands.
Do not rely on the algorithm to show you these videos. Hit the bell, baby boy. Never miss another one in the future again, baby boy. So now that we have gone through all of the reasons why people watch video essays as well as the reasons associated with them, in other words, how creators, video essayists affect audiences, we're now going to talk about how audiences affect creators. So there are essentially 3 key ways that audiences can affect creators, and these are a consequence of the dynamics that play out in relation to how the content that is made is received. And so you have the dynamic of the creator liking what they created and the audience liking what they create. You then have the creator liking what they created but the audience disliking what they create. And then, somewhat interestingly, you have a dynamic wherein the creator themselves doesn't like what they've created, but the audience does like it. So we can probably put the first dynamic to one side, you know, creator likes what they made, audience also likes what they made. Straightforward, simple. For the other 2 dynamics, however, we have a couple of case studies. So, creator likes what they made, audience does not like what they made. So for this example, for this case study, I wanted to use a pretty memorable, seismic example of a time wherein audiences were mad at their favourite video essayists. And so the first instance that came to mind was anytime ContraPoints' audience is remotely mad at her, at like the occasion where she had Buck Angel on to do some narration or something, and people were upset because Buck Angel by a certain crowd is considered to be transphobic, despite the fact that he himself is trans. Whatever, not getting into it. I'm just giving it as an example of like, here's an occasion where this happened. There was also the time when subsequently Lindsay Ellis quit the internet essentially because she got dogpiled for saying that Raya was derivative of Avatar The Last Airbender. So this is what she said in a tweet, and then I'll go over how some people responded on Reddit. Also watched Raya and The Last Dragon, and I think we need to come up with a name for this genre that is basically Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's half of all YA fantasy published in the last few years. And then at the time somebody spoke about this on Reddit. This seemingly innocuous tweet generated a lot of backlash on Twitter and accusations of racism. To the best of my understanding, these accusations stem from a belief that her tweet implied either A, that all Asian-inspired fantasy is the same, or B, that Avatar, an Asian-inspired show by white creators, is superior to Raya, an Asian-inspired movie by mostly white creators, but with some Asian writers and cast. Suffice it to say, this tweet at the time was considered to be quite a big deal, so much so that, as I say, the dogpiling, led Lindsay to leaving the internet because, as the internet gets, or got at the time, it's, death threats here and you're a piece of shit there and whatever. Internet things. The reason why I'm citing this from a Reddit post that came out 4 years ago is because even though I was vaguely or peripherally aware of this going on at the time, I can't say that I was overly or particularly invested. This is just the internet doing what the internet does. We're mad at something, so now we're gonna ruin somebody's fucking life for 3 years. Jesus Christ. All I'm saying is, I'm allergic to the drama. Shout out Donald Glover. So instead on riffing on stuff that, quite frankly, I don't actually give a shit about, I'm going to extrapolate a situation that admittedly comes more so from the commentary space than it does the video essayist space, but then I'm going to relay how this beef, how this upset pertains to video essayists. Also, I'm going to bring it back. Disco. Was that brought back? What's one thing that got brought? I'm gonna bring it back 3D cinema experiences. I don't know. So, for those that are uninitiated, this is Sneeko, who once upon a time was known for making fairly artistic and precocious videos, but now is more so known as a somewhat inflammatory live streamer, particularly big in the manosphere space and things of that nature. And then in opposition to him, you have Charlie, Moist Critical, Penguin, whatever the fuck are the names he may or may not go by. He creates these relatively lo-fi opinion pieces, reviews, so on and so forth. Also a live streamer, but these two geezers got into a little bit of a... That makes it seem like they were kissing. They got into a little bit of a... No, they got a bit more into more of this motion. So a key takeaway from the debate that these two people had was essentially that Sneeko was arguing that the age of consent for sex, in case you needed clarification, is essentially arbitrary because the rate at which people become adults is... It varies person to person, so saying that the age of consent should unanimously be 18 across the board, to him, didn't make sense because people reach a level of maturity at different ages.
Adulthood is not something that you can set in stone because it's different for the entire world. I moved out when I was 14. A lot of people don't move out until they're 25. I went through puberty when I was 17. A lot of people went through puberty when they were 13, 14, 15. It changes for everybody. So for you to say that this is the set in stone age and say you're if it's under 18, and then if you're over 18, you're fine. Well, then that's a weird line that doesn't make sense. So you're going to say this person is a terrible person if they're 17 years old, 364 days, and right after that, they're good to go.
Charlie, on the other hand, essentially said, be that as it may, be that as, people develop maturity at different ages, be that as it may, it's still a good rule of thumb to put the age of consent at 18.
What is a child?
I would use the age of consent. Under 18 would be a kid in my eyes.
So a 17-year-old who's 364 days, that's a kid?
Yep, I'm gonna use very hard set terms. If it is under 18, even if it's 17, 364, that's still a kid.
That's a kid. Okay,
I think it's important to have these hard lines in the sand where it doesn't have this kind of wiggle room.
The part that some people were particularly upset about regarding this debate, however, was that seemingly Charlie's logic was that 18 is too young to consent to things like marriage and sex. However, when it came to something like gender transition, for instance, he was a bit more lenient with that, let's say, and the extent to which his leniency came to Awareness, the audience's awareness, was when Sneeko baited him into what I would consider to be a fairly extreme hypothetical example.
Okay, if I'm 16 and I personally want to marry this girl, she's beautiful, she's 21 years old, her family wants to do it, my family wants to do it, you're saying I can't do that. We're both consenting, I'm ready to go, I'm physically mature, but I'm not allowed to marry because Moy says that woman's a pedophile. But if then the next day I leave it, I'm depressed, I want to cut my penis off, I can go right into the clinic, snip it off, and start taking HRT like Chris Tyson. That's a society that makes sense to you?
It is. I believe everyone has I believe everyone has the right to do with their body what they want to do.
Okay.
And now, I'm not going to be getting into the trans debate, at least
not in this video.
But the important thing to take away from this instance is that Charlie's audience, or some of them at least, were upset with him for having the air quote wrong take. So, on a deeper level, what happened here? I'm going to be citing myself from ample years ago. I've changed some of the words and made it slightly shorter than the excerpt originally was. This is from an essay that I wrote many moons ago that originally was about audiences in relation to YouTube vloggers, but I think a lot of the things that I wrote about then are still applicable to what we're talking about
today.
So, let's go through the citation, and then if it gets convoluted, which it probably will because that's what academia does to a motherfucker, I will explain it
thereafter.
So, the object of fandom can be thought to be a transitional object, an object that is part of the external world, a not-me object that provides a comfort as well as a protective barrier, which is to say that the object cannot change, so that the fan can maintain an illusory control over the object. In thinking of online creators as transitional objects then, if a creator verdantly or inadvertently becomes one's transitional object, then that will come with a set of expectations and desires. The intertwining of one's psyche with a celebrity could, in theory, be quite violent, and I would propose that, dependent on how much a fan's sense of self is contingent on their resemblance and identification with a creator, that if said creator were to no longer fulfill their desires by acting in an unexpected way, then this could be quite destructive to the fan's psyche. That was a bunch of convolution. I'm sorry for the run-on sentences. This is what academia teaches you to fucking do. I would never write like that today, though, again, as I say, the points still stand. It is essentially to say that one of the things that fans do is outsource their sense of self in relation to another person, whether that's a celebrity, an influencer, a video essayist, somebody in the commentary space, for instance, or, franchise. They hinge their sense of self on those things, external things, which is why then if an object, or in this case, because we're talking about people, a subject of the fandom, the thing that they look up to, so to speak, if that thing acts out or differentiates from what they expect or want to happen, then they can get
mighty upset.
What? This isn't what we expected. And whilst the example that I just gave was birthed more so from what I would refer to as the commentary space versus the video essay space, I still think the points that I made extrapolate to the video essay space also. Because in that same way, audiences look towards video essayists as the surrogate, as the conduit, as the kind of mouthpiece for their collective opinions, and that can be quite pressurizing.
My dream is to no longer be associated with the term bread tube.
Really?
I hate the term.
Really?
Yeah, it's just so much pressure. Because this is the thing, if you want to venture out, so I want to make like silly, goofy stuff sometimes, and because people might associate with me with the bread tube label, they sort of go, "Ooh, what's this? Wait, this isn't meaningful. Like, why aren't you, activism, praxis?" And I'm like, here's a newsflash. YouTube videos are not praxis. I don't know what to tell you, but I am not an activist.
On a related note of audiences needing creators, video essayists, commentary people to be the surrogate for them, their opinions, and so on, I was doing some research. D'Angelo Wallace, I stumbled across a video of his. I remembered how I stumbled across a video of his that I still haven't watched, but I thought I may in some way be able to put it into this video. I didn't, but anyway, let me just get to the point. The video that I was potentially going to watch was called, Does Anybody Else Feel Like They'll Never Be Happy?
Does anyone else feel like they will never be happy? I do. It's not a rhetorical question.
And as I say, I thought I was going to tie that into this video somehow. I didn't, but anyway, moving on. Whilst on his YouTube channel, just out of morbid curiosity, you know, his socials as well. Here's his Instagram, so I was like, I go over to the Instagram, and I like click on a photo just for, I don't know, what am I procrastinating? Am I bored? Am I sleuthing around like a digital detective? Who fucking knows? Anyway, I come across this comment that I'll share with you right now. So, it reads, are you... This is just on a random fucking photo, okay? Are you going to address the fact that your video on Chapel Roan was in terrible faith, you ignored Palestine, and you amplified tweets by a Zionist? Ma'am, D'Angelo Wallace is a twink. He is not a politician. And also, this is a Wendy's. Oh, dickhead. This is just some geezer putting up a fucking photo on Instagram. The person is talking about Chapel Roan, which for all intents and purposes, I'm sure there are important things to talk about in that regard, but it's a pop culture thing. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's like a fluff piece or whatever, but it's like, you know, it's hardly super political, super important. It's like talking about the happenings of a celebrity. It's glorified celebrity gossip. Is that hyperbolic? Is that zealous? Who knows? Whatever. Moving on. My point being, people in the public space, video essayists in particular, people that are known for giving their opinion, have to be conscious, have to be, in some cases, hyper aware of what their audience wants, because their livelihood is incumbent upon what they say being resonant with their audience, which is why, baby boy, sometimes video essayists will give their audience what their audience wants, even when they don't want to. Case study. This is Noah Samson. I first came across Noah Samson many moons ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, when a YouTuber, or maybe ex-YouTuber now, Patient Xena, rest in peace, made a video responding to a video of his that was responding to hers. It's a little bit Inception, not gonna lie.
Hello my dears, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is an interesting one. So this video is going to be a response to the response made to me by Noah Samson. So some interesting things have transpired over the last couple of days. I have had Noah's fans come over to my channel and insult me, as well as one calling me a Nazi, which was interesting. Anyways, I thought it'd be interesting for us to take a look at Noah's video to kind of understand why this has happened. So the video that Noah is responding to in his response to me is my Little Mermaid video. So let's begin.
So Patience's conclusion in this video is that instead of race swapping these characters, we need more black stories. Stop the pandering remakes and make new, good, non-white centered stories instead. This is by far the best reason one could give for disagreeing with Bailey's casting. It's the most popular reason, found in plenty of other YouTube videos and many comment sections. And it's also, I think, profoundly unconvincing.
When I tell you, when I first watched that part, I died.
Profoundly unconvincing.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Noah. I didn't realize that I had to convince you about my feelings about my representation. The superiority complex is wild. Like, Noah, who gave you the authority to tell me how I should feel about my representation? And who told you that you have the authority to decide whether or not you're convinced about my feelings about my representation? Why do I need to convince you? Why do you need to be convinced about how I feel about black representation? It's just, I can't wrap my head around it. It's like, imagine going to your friend and being like, you know that thing you said to me the other day, it actually kind of hurt my feelings. And then they turn around and go, I'm convinced. Noah, I think you might need to
look inward
to understand where you got your superiority complex from, where you think that sense of authority came from, that you think you have the right to tell a black woman how she feels about black female representation. Where does that sense of authority come from, Noah? I think you might need to look inward.
Full transparency, I did not like Noah Samson. I found him annoying. I found him to be one of those, actually whites that tells black people what they can say, do, and think. One of those whites that says, actually, the thing that you're talking about is racism, even if you don't want to admit that it's racism, and kind of like imposes their beliefs on racism above the people that racism actually affects. One of those. Actually,
Head ass.
Who is saying this? Who is labeling everyone as racist?
That would be you, Noah, and also people who think like you.
But then, years later, I stumbled upon a video. You ever just forget fucking words? I stumbled upon a video called I Made It on YouTube and Now I Hate My Art. I, on first glance, wasn't necessarily sure if this was the same guy that I remembered watching some, year or 2 years ago. Partially because all white people look the same. And then partially because I think the channel was different. It wasn't Noah Sampson, it was Noah Time. I then, later on realised that this was a second channel. But, even though I found him annoying before, I may not this time, so I thought, I'm open-minded, let me give it a go. So I gave it a watch.
Cocoon Form has engaged because for the last year probably, I've been really sick of the art that I'm making, if it can even be called that. I think whatever creativity and interesting elements of the things that drive me artistically died at least a year ago.
So then I was like, who is this different character? Who is this completely different person? This is the kind of guy that I could probably be friends with, maybe, I don't know. I thought the video was fairly vulnerable. I thought it was fairly brave. This guy is far more likable. And so, why, when I stumbled upon him the first time in his, on his video essay channel, why did I find him so fucking punchable? And the reason for that is because, to an extent, it seems as though he finds himself punchable too.
That's really interesting because I'm also not a confrontational person.
Really?
But
That's
you wouldn't know that based on my content. Every time I make a video and somebody responds, I'm like, why don't they like me? Why are they mad at me?
Yeah.
And it's this bizarre thing where it's like my internet brain pushes me to react to things in one way, and then my real brain, when I'm hearing someone talk about what I've said, is like,
Right.
like I didn't say that. It's like dual personality shit. I don't know. It's really weird. I'm like in a content identity crisis right now because I'm sick. I'm like sick of the shit that I've been doing. But part of that is just like trying to communicate better on the internet, and like Twitter politics brain fucks you up. Like it really fucks you up.
Yeah. Slop versus art and Twitter brain.
What do you not like about your content?
I think it's just like very what's not systematic. Like I follow a set thing where it was really fun at first, and for a while, like finding something and then making fun of it, which is a very basic, I guess, trope and genre on YouTube. I have very bad habits of like just clowning on shit that I think is weird.
So, what is the solution to all of this? Whether this is the audience sucking the nipple, whether this is the audience sucking the nipple of video essayists, of content creators, or whether we're talking about the issue of video essayists giving the nipple and feeling polarized about it. In a word, authenticity. For creators, if you operate under the guise of a persona, if that persona begins to feel unhealthy, then it may be a good idea to take the mask off. Because if you wear the mask for too long, that shit could start to get kind of depressing.
Depression is your body saying, fuck you, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me. You should think of the word of depressed as deep rest. Deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play.
A couple of years ago, I watched a video of D'Angelo Wallace's wherein he was talking about being depressed. I think he was just off the back of being on a fairly sizable absence from YouTube, let's say. And, I've already mentioned the video earlier about never being happy, and I can't help but feel that part of the reason, and I don't claim to know this man's life or anything like that, however, I can't help but feel intuitively that if your livelihood is dependent upon saturating your mind with some of the worst things that you can find to then report back to your audience, I'm not fucking surprised if you're depressed. If I'm keeping a bean, look at the input that you're feeding the machine. That wasn't supposed to rhyme, but it anyway. And that also stretches likewise for people whose, primary thing is like looking at other people's content and being like, this is not good.
Not good. Not as good as people say. You're cringe. You're fucking cringe. This is off script. Maybe, dude, I watched this film and it wasn't as good as other people are saying it is. It's not as good as it thinks it is. So fucking what? At least they participated in the act of creation. What do? You just fucking criticize, you fucking Make something, you fucking coward, you fucking Sometimes the fucking Holy Spirit just jumps out at me and I just need to fucking go off. Anyways, the proclivity for depression aside, you know, in the realm of consuming a bunch of negative stuff, the creation of video essays can also just get boring in general because, you know, it's doing the same thing over and over again. And if you do the same thing over and over again, it stops being interesting.
That's the only competition that makes sense, is continuing to evolve and push ourselves artistically and not get complacent, especially in success. It's easy to get complacent once something works. It's like, I'll just keep doing more of that. It ends up maybe one more time you can get away with it. But once 3 are similar, it stops being interesting.
Fundamentally, you need to give yourself the freedom to be yourself, even if it goes against the party line, what your ideology wants, what your audience wants to hear. And on authenticity, again, I also think it would be quite helpful for video essayists, and I think I'm finding this for myself actually. I think it would be a good idea to find a creative outlet that isn't just writing video essays. Because not gonna lie, video essays are kind of hard. They require a lot of research, writing. To an extent, you have to be conscious of the audience. They take a long time to produce, which is why, and this is speculative, I think we're going to see more and more video essayists break away from the medium, whether that's in the way of just making podcasts or something a bit more lo-fi, like a second channel, for instance. It's kind of difficult to be serious all the gosh darn time, bro, you know? In the words of Reggie Fils-Aimé, if it isn't fun, why bother? And then, on the audience side, I suppose I would lightly encourage you to stop, in the event that you find yourself doing this, pedestalizing commentary channels, video essayists, otherwise thought leaders, which is something that I probably shouldn't say, particularly as, you know, being somebody that wants to grow an audience, you know, advice for people to, let's say, grow a cult-like following. You know, you want people to almost overly invest in you, but, you know, what I just said, not pedestalizing people, that goes for me also. Video essayists are not oracles. They don't have the objective answers. We are fallible human beings just like the rest of you. We just dress up what we say with more intellectual language, which is why you need to be okay with the idea of, you know, again, commentary channels, video essayists, thought leaders, you need to be okay with the idea of them failing you. And there's a reason why I put failing you in air quotes, and that's because, as we've gone over, what tends to happen, or what has the potential to happen, is that audiences will form parasocial relationships with creators. Therefore, sometimes if they share a take and opinion that they don't actually agree with, they can feel as though they've been betrayed or wronged. I can't believe you would say or do such a thing. I guess I didn't know you as well as I thought I did. Yeah, you didn't. That's what happens when you form a parasocial relationship to an online personality. You need to be able to be comfortable with being disappointed by takes that you may not agree with by video essayists. Otherwise, how can you expect them to be able to be authentic if the garden, if the soil isn't there? Give them the context to be able to express themselves authentically without you walking away because they shared a wrong take or whatever. It's really not that hard. Take what you like, leave what you don't, and if they share a take that you don't like, let them.
Layton of Zabus.
Unless they're like advocating for genocide or something, but I didn't think I'd have to spell that out directly. I thought that was pretty obvious, you know. Use your fucking discernment. Sorry, that was too close. Long time no see. Videos more consistent again. I had a life crisis. Maybe there'll be an update on Patreon, of which, speaking of, please sign up to, because thanks for watching. Love you.